numbers in that vector. Remember, when we do vectors, it is important to know that they're supposed to have these brackets instead. So I'm Rebecca, so my vector was vector R. 2, 8 was my components. All right, so let's get a vector K. Kaylin, would you please give me a vector K?
4 and 3.
Thank you. Michaela, would you please give me a vector M?
6 and 2.
And Shariah, go ahead and give me a vector S. Thank you. All right, now, because the people that I just randomly called on, don't worry, I might come back and call on some of you, because right now these only have 2 parts. Remember, they could have 3. There's going to be a couple things I do to these, and I will zoom in on them in just a minute just so you can read them a little bit better. But thank you, ladies, for giving me those. But remember, I did +2, +8. They all gave me positive numbers. So I'm going to go back on Kaylin's. I'm going to make the 4 be a negative. I will zoom in on these and go a little bit closer so you can see them. On Michaela's, I'm going to make her 2 be negative. And on Shariah's, I'm actually going to make both of them be negative. All right, because that just gives us a few different negatives and positives in different places. So right now we had vector R was 2, 8, both positive. Vector K is now -4, 3, just so we can get some negatives in there. Vector M is 6, -2, and vector S is -5, -7. All right. Remember, this is vector notation. So really right now, this would mean 2 to the right and 8 up, which means Kaylin, since I adjusted it, would be going to the left. And so as we change things and do a couple things here, but these could be written like this, and we might have to do some simple math, very simple, like R plus K. Now, again, because they are written right there, some people like to rewrite the vectors. Some people like to just look and say, hey, if we had R plus K, R, again, I am rewriting them right here because the first component is 2 and the first component is -4. I just combine those components. 2 minus 4, technically, even though there's a plus here. And guys, I'm going to talk about that because there's a couple of Tylen, a couple people have said if you either unpin me and then pin me again, you might be able to see me. Or if you need to leave the Google Meet and try to come back, that's fine. Okay. If neither of those work, I am recording it. If you at least can kind of hear me, some of the stuff, and I am recording it. So I eventually will upload the recording. Okay. Yes, there is a plus symbol in between here, but that is 2 minus 4. Chanel, I see you just popped in here. We are recording again today, just so you know, okay? So 2 minus 4 would give me a -2. My other components were 8 and 3. Both of those are positive, so I would add those. 8 plus 3 would give me 11. Aaron, if you wouldn't mind either unmuting yourself or in the Google chat, if you would please tell me, like, hey, Miss Jabs, remember these are the 4 we have right now. Maybe tell me something like 2m plus 3s or something like, would you give me a coefficient maybe on each one of them? And we're going to add a couple of those vectors right there. (3s) plus 4r. All right, so if everybody would please write down 3s plus 4r. 3s plus 4r is what Aaron asked us to work on. So since Aaron asked us to work on, hi, Madison, I know sometimes your speaker is not working anyway, but just so you know, I am recording this, okay? And Chanel, I think I told you, anybody else that was new, I am recording just so you guys know. 3s.
Ms. Jabs?
Yes.
Can you scoot it over just a little bit?
Like scoot it this way, like that?
No, the other way. Okay,
Like right
that's
there?
good.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, Trinity, thank you. All right, so Aaron asked us to work on 3s plus 4r. And so because of that, it is easy for us to just keep this 3 here. We treat it very much like distribution. Keep that 3 there, but then s was -5, -7. And then our 4 here on our r, which was 2, 8. So Aaliyah, again, whether you need to unmute yourself or if you want, thank you, Madison. Aaliyah, if you want to either unmute yourself or if you just want to type it in the chat. If we would distribute this 3, what would we get?
-15, -14. No, -21.
Yep, sorry, I was looking at my 3. So -15, -21. Thank you very much. And let's see who's next. Brianna Tucker, would you please tell me if I distribute that 4, what am I going to get there?
If you distribute the 4 to the 2,
Both, you distribute it to both parts, correct?
oh, like that's 8. I can't see it.
It's, well, it was vector R, so it's 2, 8. So you're distributing a 4 to a 2 and an 8.
Okay, great. So that, and then the other one is the 32. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we have an 8 and a 32. The symbol in between still stays as a plus.
Yeah.
So we now have -15 plus 8. Please, you guys, Jamie, same thing as before. I don't know if it worked for Thailand. Sometimes if you either unpin my picture and then pin it again, or if you leave the Google Meet and come back, I don't know, okay? But -15, excuse me, but the 8 is positive. That means I'm gonna get 7 left over and it's a -7. I have a -21, but a positive 32. I believe that is also, that is 11. But since the 32 was bigger, it is positive 11. Is everybody agreeing with me right there that -7, positive 11 would be our answer?
Yeah.
Sounding okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jamie, if you don't care unmuting yourself or answering in the meet, like, can you see again or no? All right. Okay, thanks, Jamie. That's fine. Jalen Eubanks. I'm going to ask you a question, please, okay? It's going to be a subtraction question, okay? So on the board behind me just a minute ago, I had Aaron give me 3s plus 4r, okay? If you wouldn't mind, please, would you please tell me, sorry, I'm trying to maybe move it that it's a little bit closer that we can see a little bit better too. Jalen Eubanks, would you please tell me something, but instead of like 3s plus 4r, you're going to tell me something like a minus sign in the middle, but please have both of them. Please have both of them still have a coefficient on them, okay?
Okay. 7s minus 5r.
All right, so guys, I don't think a lot of us have trouble distributing a 7 on the s. So s was once again our -5, -7. All right, I know I switched up and I wrote that in blue, but there's kind of a reason I'm doing that. Can everybody see that okay? Sorry, I'm trying to write big enough and stuff like I normally do. If we distribute that -7, my fault, 7, I would get -35 and -49. Now, this is going to sound like a strange question, and I probably could have called on the next person to distribute that. But does everybody kind of understand that the 7 was positive, but both the 5 and the 7 were negative? So when I distribute a positive 7, the 5 has to stay negative. That's why I got -5. The 7 has to stay negative. That's why I got -49. There are some of you who are having trouble on the next part of this problem. And I'm just moving it here so it's a little bit kind of closer and bigger or whatever. Here is the trick. If we want to distribute just a 5, that is okay. If I distribute a 5, that is a 5, that means my signs in R will not change. But since my signs in R will not change, it needs to say a minus sign. Let me just do that one first. You can argue with me later, please and thank you, because there is something else I could do. But if I am going to distribute a 5 into R, that means I would get positive 10, because that would stay the same, and positive 40, because the signs of those would stay the same. But since I distributed only the 5, there would still be a minus sign in between, because all I distributed was the 5. This negative sign would have to stay there. So right now I have negative 35 minus 10 more. That answer would be negative 45. I have negative 49 minus 49. That answer, minus 49 would give me minus 89 is what I was thinking, my fault. And some of you are like, but Miss Jabs, shouldn't we distribute a negative? You know what? It is okay for you to distribute a negative 5. But let me do this. And the reason I want to go through this is because there are some people who are mistakenly doing this. If I distribute a negative 5, it becomes a negative 10 inside and a negative 40 inside. But here is the part where some of you are goofing up. Because I have now distributed the negative, there is no sign left over, which means it automatically has become plus. I know that sounds weird, but some of you are still messing that up. Guys, I want to compare it very much to if I go, and I know the glare is a little bit bad on this side, but if I would distribute a negative 2 to an x minus 5, right? If I distribute this negative 2, there's still a negative 2 here, but because of how I distribute this and it becomes a plus, I don't leave a negative out in front here anymore. Because I distributed, the negative has now become there, and it's like this negative went with each part, okay? And so please make sure that you're careful when you're doing that. But look, if I do this now, 35 and 10, but they're both negative, that would be negative 45. 49 and 40, but they're both negative, that would be 89. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, okay? Another thing I would like to do with these right here, please write this down in your notes as well. It is a very, very fancy word. It is the word magnitude, okay? When we have a vector, we can find the magnitude of it. The word magnitude means size. And because we're going to do it in a minute, I'm putting that parentheses there. I do want you to think of Pythagorean's theorem. And so we would do a squared plus b squared, but of course, find the radical of that. Excuse me?
Oh, sorry.
But because we could have 3 components, I could have a plus c squared right there. Jalen, Walden, I am up to you, please. I know a couple people, I'll move it a little bit this way too so you can see them again and see them a little bit easier. We had 4 vectors that we started with so far, R, K, M, or S. Would you please just call on one of them?
M.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so would you please find the magnitude of vector M? Again, if we go back over here, I know some people are having trouble with their screens. Hopefully you had it written down, but if not, vector M was 6, -2. Please make sure you use your brain sometimes more than your calculators a little bit. What happens if you square a negative number? It should become positive. Your calculators sometimes goof you up on that one if you're not careful. So our first component was 6. So we're going to square 6. Let's go ahead and write it in parentheses so we know we're not screwing up. -2, we're supposed to square it. I would not even use your calculator with the numbers I have on the board right here. Sometimes they get a little bit bigger and a little bit trickier. 6 squared equals, good, thank you, 36. -2, forget about the negative. Negative times a negative becomes a positive. So 2 squared is
4.
4. Thank you. We now have 36 plus 4, which means we should take the square root of 40. Please remember, we've done this forever, depending on, I know I'm getting really close to the bottom of the board there. Hey, Nehemiah, thanks for coming in. The square root, just so you know, we are recording this, okay? So if you are on if you want to make sure your video is off so you don't pop up, but once in a while I ask for questions if you don't care about turning your mic on and off, but most of the time maybe keep it off, okay? We right now are trying to simplify the square root of 40. Right now we could leave our answer as the square root of 40, but remember 40 is 4. We like 4 because it's a perfect square. 4 times 10. The square root of 4 happens to be 2, but 10 cannot break down anymore. So we could write the answer, and I'll move my computer down just a little bit so you guys can see that at the bottom there too in those last few steps. I broke up the square root of 40 to be 2 radical 10. But if I had 2 radical 10, I could also type that into, again, if you guys have not been using Desmos on your phone, I would very strongly either recommend downloading Desmos on your phone or using Desmos through your Google Chrome or whatever. 2 radical 10, or I mean, you could get this too if you just typed in the square root of 40. You get an answer of approximately 6.3. Okay. And again, some of you answered both of those when we had that on the homework. Some of you answered just one. All right. So we walked through together how to find the magnitude of M. Let's see, Kaylin Nash, I'm up to you. If you would please, don't say M because we already found that one, but would you please tell me another vector, please?
Ms. Jabs, I have a quick question.
Yes, Michaela.
What happened to your C?
There is no C on this problem because this only has 2 components in it. C is only used if there's 3 components. All these vectors right now only have 2 components. That's why there's nothing with C right now.
Okay.
Kaylin.
You said we already did S.
We already did M.
-5 and -7.
No, my fault. You're picking R, K, or S.
Oh, K, -4 and 3.
All right. So if you would please. On your own right now. So I'm going to be quiet for about 30 seconds to a minute. It might take a little bit longer for some of you to do that. I don't want to pause too long because I know if you are rewatching this in the video, you could hit pause. But if you would please work on finding the magnitude of vector K. All right, like I said, it takes some people a little bit longer. It takes some people a little bit shorter. 3 and 4 are both nice numbers. If we square 3, we get 9. If we square 4, we get 16. Sorry, I know that's in the opposite order. Square root of 25. Hopefully everybody found your answer to be
5.
good. Thank you, Erin. Yep, hopefully your answer was 5. Our answer right here is just a nice even 5. We wouldn't even have to leave the radical in the answer. We could just say magnitude is 5. So everybody okay so far if we are doing vectors and the vector only has 2 components?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So because I called on those people before, I'm going to, just so in our notes we have completely different letters. Let's see. Brianna, hold on just a minute. I'm going to call your guys' names so I remember who I call on. Jamie. I'm sorry, I don't like to use S very much, L very much because of it kind of looks like a 1. I know I already used S, so I'll call on Tylen as well. We'll just do 3 this time, but Brianna, Jamie, and actually Aaliyah, sorry, I forgot, I hadn't used it. We didn't have an A yet. So would you guys please think of 3 numbers, right? Because everything we had on the board just a minute ago only had 2, so it was like an X and a Y. Brianna, would you tell me 3 numbers? Rather than have to make me give some negatives, if you guys would throw some negatives in there. Brianna, what's yours?
5, 4, -8. Boom.
Okay, Jamie, if you would please tell me 3 numbers.
-3, 2, and 4.
Tylen, if you would please tell me 3 numbers.
Can I go for her?
Sure.
5, 0, -10.
And Aaliyah.
-9, -2, and 3.
All right, so guys, can you guys read those numbers okay? And I know you heard them saying them too. Can you read those all okay, or should I rewrite any of them?
I can see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at the beginning of the day, I started like all the way with Aaron or whoever. I think I'm on about Kiana. Kiana, would you please tell me, you can pick B, J, T, A. Would you please tell me 2 of those letters, please?
B and A.
So if I would ask you guys to add vector B plus vector A, would anybody really have too big of a deal with adding B with vector A? I hope not. Would you
No.
please, in your notes, do B plus A? Again, ones like this, I don't necessarily expect you to have answers written down. I mean, all the work, like B plus A is pretty easy because you might even just be able to look right here and say 5 plus -9. So my first number would be -4. Am I correct? Everybody got -4?
Yeah.
Good. But then we are supposed to add our middle ones, 4 plus -2.
2.
So +2. And then -8 plus 3.
-5.
-5. Does everybody see what I mean? Like for that one, I don't think we really have to show much work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But let's look at, hold on, just a second ago. So next on my list, it looks like is Leah. Leah, would you please tell me 2 of those vectors? But you're going to give me a coefficient in front.
Okay, 7B, and then -2T.
All right. So we've already done this with 2 components. It shouldn't change much. It might be helpful for you when we actually have to do distribution to write another step or 2. Some people really like to write the 7 first and then rewrite vector B. And then show the work of distributing that 7. Some people already just like to say, hey, I have to make B 7 times bigger. And so right away, they might write down 35, 28, 50, excuse me. The 8 is the only one that is negative, correct? So -56. Everybody following along so far? All right, if you would work on that second one, again, please be very careful. Leah did ask us to do -2T. Please be careful of that warning I gave about the negative, okay? All right, if I distributed my negative correctly, that second vector on that side, and guys, I keep on trying to switch it out to find the markers that write the darkest. So if you need me to rewrite anything, just let me know. When I did distribute a negative, so I switched it to the plus, but it became a negative 10. The 0 stays at 0, and the negative 10 became a positive 20. So if I added those correctly, 25, 28, 40, somebody said 46. I agree with the 25 and the 28. Aaron, can you either, or anybody else want it? Should this one right here be a negative 36?
Yes.
Somebody else got negative 36. Shariah, did you get a positive 36 or negative 36? Okay, Aaron, good. Thank you, Shariah. Aaron, you figured out it should be a negative 36. All right, so Michaela, thank you. Good, guys, thank you. Michaela asked before, when I wrote magnitude and I had a C in there, she goes, what happened to your C squared? I said, I didn't have to use C squared yet because I didn't have 3 components. These now have 3 components. Let's see, I am up to Madison. Madison, would you pick one of these letters, B, J, T, or A? Madison, would you please type one of those letters, please? Madison, were you able to tell me one of these vectors to work with?
You want me to do it, Miss Sharps?
I'm going to skip to Chanel, actually. Chanel, would you tell me a vector, one of these vectors from here on our 3s?
I could do T, 5, 0, negative 10.
All right. So she's asking us right now to find the magnitude of T. So this one, we are going to write the square root. It's going to feel a little bit weird because usually when we're doing Pythagorean's theorem, we only have to write 2 numbers underneath our radical. But because we have 3 components, I need to write 3 numbers underneath there. Chanel even reminded us the first number underneath, for part T is 5. So I've got to do 5 squared. Guys, I know 0 squared is just 0, but when you're looking through your work to know how you did this, it might help you in your work to write plus 0 squared. And our last one, be careful with that negative. Let's make sure we put it in parentheses. Plus negative 10, make sure it's squared. 5 squared is 25. Again, some of these are easy to do in our head. 10 squared is 100. 25 plus 100. Again, if you want to write that step in between there, that's fine. But we get 125. 125 is not a perfect square, but it is 25, 25, 50, 75, 100, 125. It would be 25 times 5. So one answer I could write would be 5 radical 5. Another answer I could write, I could just type straight into my calculator the square root of 125. And if I look for the square root of 125, my calculator is telling me the answer is 11.2. It looks like it would round to 11.2. All right, Trinity, I know you've been, I'm up to you. Shariah, I think, did some earlier, but Trinity, would you please tell us another, don't pick T because we just found T. Would you pick one of these other letters right here, please?
We could do J.
All right. So guys, this is the work for T. I'm going to erase it in one quick second. Hopefully you were following along with me. Would you please on your own work on finding the magnitude of J? Again, I'll give you about 30 seconds to kind of start.
Miss Sharps.
Yes?
Is
What's that?
our calculator supposed to be in degrees mode?
You know what?
Right.
For this part today, it does not matter what mode it's in. For this
Oh, okay.
part today, it does not matter. Okay? Good question, though.
Where'd she go?
I'm here.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
No, just curious.
Okay.
Miss Jobs, is it okay if we put it in decimal answer?
Yes, it is okay if you put in a decimal answer, and that's, I'll accept either a radical answer or decimal answer. Either one is okay.
Okay.
So I bet most of you found the square root of 29. 29 is a very unique number. There's nothing that I can break 29 into. So you could leave, right? Did you guys find 29?
Yes.
Okay, so Aaron, I believe that's why you were maybe asking that too. You could leave your answer as the radical of 29 if you would want. But if you're also typing that in your calculator, my calculator is telling me that is approximately 5.4,
Oh, yeah, round up.
right? Because you got to round that, because it's 3/8, right? So that 3/8 would make you round up.
Yes.
All right, guys, that's what your homework is going to look like. Okay. But because a lot of people were kind of saying earlier that they were thinking they would like the test possibly on Friday, and I'll do a few other things and I'll post a few other things just to make sure. There is one more thing I would like to review so that there's not necessarily going to be homework on this posted today, but there might be a few like, hey, in case you're unsure of this and you want some extra practice. Okay. If you would please,
Wait, I got another question.
yes, ma'am.
The test, is it gonna be like how our first test was, like when we were all on a call and everything, but it was still open up?
Yeah, yes, thank you. Because we now have like times when class are going on, and like right now, all of you are sitting here like working on this with me, able to ask questions, things like that. It will be during class time. I won't offer different sessions. It will be during class time. So like right now, if it was Friday instead of now, you would be sitting here working on your test. You would be working on like whatever we're working on, if that makes sense. And yes, it would be open note. Same thing.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I need 5 volunteers, please. And you can either unmute yourself or whatever, but we're going to do one of those problems where it's like a big crazy thing where a person walks a whole bunch of ways and we got to figure out our resultant vector. So who wants to give me a number?
2.
Give me a number.
All right. Trinity, I heard 2. Is that correct?
Yeah.
2 meters east. Leah,
7.
7 meters south.
3.
3 meters east.
5.
5 meters east. One
6.
more person, please.
I think Aaliyah said 6.
Thank you. 6. I thought I covered to somebody else. So 6 meters south. All right. So guys, on this one too, I know a couple of them that I gave you as homework problems. And if you're like, hey, Miss Jabs, I want some more of those, please just let me know. If I forget to get them to you, don't feel bad just emailing me back. Because sometimes like right now, somebody's like, oh, I know I'm going to want extra practice with those. If you tell me right now, I'm like, oh, good, awesome. Thanks for telling me. But if it's right now in the middle of this and we're working on this problem and then I go to eat lunch, I might forget. Okay. Please remember, when you get a big list like this, we want to break it down into horizontal numbers and vertical numbers. When I'm writing on the board, even through the video, you guys can see, okay, the difference between green and blue. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to circle this one in blue. Since that's east, I won't circle south. East, east. All of them happen to be east this time. Sometimes there would be a west in there. We would maybe have to subtract. What's 2 plus 3 plus 5?
10.
So we're going to do 10 east. Again, we would have to be a little bit careful if one of those was maybe west. But I'm going to circle these 2 in green because those are both south. So those are both vertical words. They both happen to be the same number. the same direction. Excuse me, I meant to say direction. If one was south and one was north, we would have to subtract. 7 plus 6 is?
13.
And so we're going to go 13 meters south. All right, guys, please remember I said it's very important when we're doing this. I'm going to move my board over, my stool over just a little bit so we see a little bit more of this side of the board. It's very important to know where you start. So I'm going to put a big fat box here with an S. The first number we figured out was 10 meters east. That arrow is already telling me that direction is east. So I'm going to put a 10 there. I don't need to write east. If you really want to, I suppose you could. And now from the end there, I should go south from that. I'm going to make that line just a little bit longer. That's a direction of south. And I'm putting the number 13 on there. This green line right here would be my resultant vector. It is a right triangle. And so please, most of you get a ton of points. Guys, I want to tell you something right now as we're working through this, because this is going to be a question on a test. Not these exact numbers. You can see how easy it is for me to just throw different numbers on there and make a new question. You need to use Pythagorean's theorem. I hope all of you know how to use Pythagorean's theorem. That should be an easy point for this test question on Friday. Please use Pythagorean's theorem to find what the length of that green line is. Trinity asked this question before. When we are using Pythagorean's theorem, even though it is with right triangles, we're not using any degrees in that work. So right now on Desmos, it actually does not matter. And I'm going to give this hint. That's why I'm kind of talking about right now. Since we're not entering any angles and we don't want our answer right now to be an angle answer, it does not matter that our calculator is not, if it's in degree mode or not in degree mode. Right now, it does not matter. Anybody want to tell? Yeah.
I'm sorry, Miss Yap. So when do we use degree mode?
Yep, anytime you need to use an angle or you're finding an angle. Right now, are we using an angle in this problem? No. Are we finding an angle yet? Not yet.
Okay.
Would you agree we're using Pythagorean's theorem, which is not the angle part of it, it's just the size part of it?
Yeah.
So since it's just the size part of it, we don't need to be in degree mode because we're not finding that answer yet. Anybody want to tell me either on chat or unmute yourself, what did you find for the length of that hypotenuse?
16.4.
Very good. 16.4. Anybody else get 16.4?
Yeah, I got that.
Good, good, good. Guys, that's a lot of points for the test on Friday. You can take all of this, get these numbers, which was not hard, get that answer of 16.4. We are now about to find an angle. So Trinity and everybody else, since we are about to find an angle, now is the time. And honestly, everything we've done, it wouldn't have mattered if your calculator was in degree mode. So honestly, this chapter, if you, as soon as you start working with this test or whatever, and you turn on Desmos, if you want to make sure it's in degree mode, that will not change any answer we have found so far. So it's okay to always have your calculator in degree mode, but since we are finding an angle, you will definitely want to make sure you are in degree mode. All right, guys, where did I start this problem? Up here where I put that big fat box. Inside your triangle, right next to where you started, that is where you need to find the angle. So I'm going to put my theta right there. You need to find this theta, okay? A couple of you, when you've been working, you found one of the thetas and you've kind of been able to do your work, but sometimes your pictures are a little bit backwards. And I know how you get the answers you do, but you get the incorrect answers because you find like the different angle. You always want to find the angle next to where you started. So we want to find the angle right up here. If we go across from it, it's the 13. If we go next to it, it's the 10. So I'm going to find tangent inverse of 13 over 10. I'm going to find tangent inverse of 13 over 10.
52.
Thank you. Other people agree 52?
Yes.
Okay. That means inside right here, you would get 52 degrees. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we should all know that 52 degrees is in quadrant 1, which means we should go to the east and north. And remember over here, I know there's a little bit of a glare. Remember we had east and south as our 2 directions. 52 degrees is in quadrant 1. That would mean east and north. Please listen to this very carefully because I know some people get to this point and they're like, I don't get this question. I'm just going to skip it. If you would do what we've done so far, you've gotten 4 of 5 points, maybe 3.5 out of 4 points. It kind of depends on if this question, like when I grade the test, it kind of is like, how many points is it out of? If this would make it out of either 59 or 60 points, I would make this 1 more point. Kind of makes some sense. You have only missed about a half a point right now on this whole problem. So if you choose not to do all of this work, you've just lost 4 points. If you've done this, you've got 4 points. You've only missed a point because we know we're not in quadrant 1. Once again, if I go back to where I started and I would pretend that my circle is right here.
You was
So
subtracting
lines going this way,
360.
they're going to be 0 or 360. What number do I want to use?
360.
I want to use 360 because I have gone backward from 360. And how many backwards from 360 have I gone?
52.
So 360 minus 52.
308.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I currently have not put questions like this on today's review because I kind of knew that a lot of people were thinking the test on Friday would work well. If you are listening to me right now, or if you are watching this video later and you're like, Ms. Jabs, this is the part I'm the most concerned about, everything else looks good, and you want more questions like this, please tell me. I can post something either on Classroom, particularly for you, or I can email you, particularly here's some extra questions. Maybe eventually I'll just post a couple like that too for you to check in on. But today's homework is not this stuff. It's the component stuff, just the vector notation where we have them written in there like I did in the first, half an hour of our review that we worked on today. But questions like this will also be on the test, okay? So guys, I'm gonna hit stop recording right now. There's a few things I want you to wait for just because of a couple things, all right? Come on.